Marc, an art teacher, a professional artist, and in today's weekly video I'm going to show you how to draw amazing looking folds from imagination in under 10 minutes. Keep watching and you'll see how much you improve right away. I'm serious. Let's get started. Alright, today we're going to learn, son. So I'm going to show you how to draw folds the easy way. We can't go into much depth in the context of a short YouTube video, but I want to show you 3 types of folds that you're likely to draw often, and the basic logic behind them all. Hopefully this will allow you to repeat this in different but similar scenarios. For something more in depth, check out Art School for Digital Artists. Excuse me. Now, you might be asking yourself, why the heck just 3 types of folds and not more? As if 3 types is enough. Well, for a video of only a couple minutes, I think you might be getting more value than you realize. Here's why I say this. The types of folds that I'm about to show you are folds that you'll almost always have to draw for your characters. Like what? Like the folds around the crotch, the folds around the armpits, and the more simple folds you get around your joints when you bend your arms and your knees. These types of folds are folds that you'll be drawing 70-80% of the time when you draw folds. These are the majority, the vast majority of folds that you'll ever draw. I hope I'm not overselling this. Now, on the contrary, what I'm not going to talk about are the more unique folds, the types that you'd only draw like 30%, 20% of the time, like capes, long dresses, towels. Most fold as a result of gravity, actually, and other stuff like that. I might in a future video, if there's any interest. Let me know in the comments, bro. I won't be talking about anything too in-depth here, though, so don't expect to walk away from this video understanding everything there is to know about folds. Only I understand everything. JK. No, but I was referring to the class I teach in art school on this topic for a reason, because it's an hours-long class. There's a lot to cover when talking about logic and theory about folds, but we'll skip most of that today. What? Yeah, instead, you can expect to learn how to draw good, no, great looking folds that you'll be able to use and show off often. Away, let's go. So the first type we'll start with is the easiest. If you can pull this one off, the others should be more challenging, but definitely doable. If this is too much already, alright, let's get started. So the first type will be the knee arm band fold. Like, let's say your character is wearing long pants or a long sleeve shirt. So here, just to start, we have a very basic limb, more like a cylinder. It could be anything. And here we want to see what happens when you introduce a band in the volume. What happens to the fabric that's laying on top of it? Well, if I maintain the line length here, this is what happens. Obviously, we have a little bit of a problem because there's too much fabric on this side all of a sudden, and not enough on that side. And of course, what we expect is something more like this, where the extra fabric will kind of bunch up at the band here. And on the outside, well, the fabric will just stretch a little bit. So as actual fabric, maybe this would look something like this. Now, this is super simple. It's like an unspecified type of fabric, but I want to point your attention to the actual anatomy of this fold here. Very stylized, yes, but this makes it easy to replicate. So in the center, we're going to have kind of like this long diamond shape. The 2 extremities will point, one at the tension point here, like the elbow, if this was an arm, and the other side will point at kind of like the band here where all the fabric bunches up. And then from there, we're going to have 2 other folds that are a little bit more relaxed. And then the rest, nothing, just the rest of the sleeve. And so what we'll be looking at really when drawing folds is this type of logic here and any variants of that. If the fabric was more baggy, for example, you might want to make those folds bigger. And then if the fabric is tighter, maybe a little bit less stiff, you'll get the same thing, but those same folds will be thinner as well. So in this case, we still get the same logic. We have our flat diamond in the center, the 2 little arms, and then in this case, some extra arms because the fabric is fine enough. And if I may, let me bring your attention to the direction of those folds. Usually, folds will want to travel in between tension points. So in this case, you're going to get something against the fabric here. We're going to get tension in the back here where all the fabric is bunching up together. And so the deepest, strongest folds will travel between the 2 tension points as directly as possible. But as you ease the tension here, starting with the arms and then any other folds, the folds will instead follow the direction of the volume more and more. Oh, and by the way, that diamond shape here is concave. Oh, and by the way, number 2, this is the kind of rhythm that you should be aiming for when it comes to folds. A high frequency of folds closer to the tension point, and then have that frequency kind of die off as you move away, as you release tension. Oh, by the way, number 3, the folds themselves will follow the perspective of the volume that they're laying on top of. And so if we look at this particular cylinder, we can see the top of it. We can't see the bottom of it. And so we're looking down on the cylinder, meaning that we'll look down on the folds as well. And so those folds here will follow the same direction. If the perspective was different and we could see the cylinder from below, the folds would follow suit as well, curving upwards in this case. Even when the folds are really weak and have not much tension to them, you should still introduce a little bit of curve in the same angle as the volume itself. Alright, so as an example here, we have a sleeve, a tight shirt. I can see here, based on the angle at the wrist, that the angle of this volume, this long cylinder, is in a perspective such as we see it from below, meaning that most of the folds will have a tendency to follow the same angle. We're going to start with our diamond shape here. Like I said, it's a tighter shirt, tighter fabric, so the folds are going to be smaller. The 2 hands, and then maybe some extra folds in here, smaller ones. And of course, always nicer if we adjust the silhouette along with it. And then quickly another example, if the fabric is a little poofier, you're gonna get a larger, softer diamond and thicker, bolder folds. But as you can see here, we're using the same kind of anatomy, same logic. All right, so let's quickly move on to the next type of fold. What happens in the armpit area? Once again, folds that will draw often, pretty much as long as your character is not topless, or sleeveless, I should say. All right, so the anatomy of this fold here is going to be slightly different, but very similar. So we're still going to start with a long diamond here, right between the 2 tension points as usual. So good to identify those. So of course here at the top of the shoulder, we're going to get a little bit of tension where the fabric is kind of just resting on it, and in the armpit where all the fabric is bunching up. And then just like the first example, I like to have 2 extra little arms. They're just not going to be placed the same way. We're going to have a big one and a baby one following the seam of the shirt. So usually the seam will be right in the middle of the shoulder, right about there. So that's where those folds would appear. And then a baby one, like I said. And that's it, at least at its simplest. If we have a tighter fabric, maybe a little bit more delicate, once again, we're going to get more folds. But keep in mind the kind of rhythm that we're dealing with here, where the more intense folds will be in between the tension points. And then everything else gets weaker and there's more distance between them. If it's a baggier shirt, same anatomy, you'll just want to stretch it a little bit more vertically. And also probably use fewer of them. All right, so far so good. Let's move on to the final example, the last fold recipe that we're going to be looking at today. The folds in the crotchal area. Is that even how you say this? The folds around the crotch. In this case, we're going to have a few more, but it's still pretty simple, I think. So here we have probably the most obvious tension point at the pubis, and the other tension point is going to be the hips, or like the entire waist, and maybe the knees. And the way that the folds will arrange themselves will be kind of this X pattern. We'll get the deepest folds along the line where the leg bends at the hips, and then going down, those folds will be going towards the knees. Once again though, we're still going to get the diamond shape. I just have 2 lines here on either side of kind of like the main one, the main fold, because you could technically kind of pick any of these 2 and it would work. And the folds pointing downwards are definitely weaker than the ones going up. So keep that in mind. Let's do another example here, maybe with some jeans, so like stiffer material. We're gonna get our main fold starting from the pubis, and then let's give that big fold some friends to hang out with and chat about all things pubic. And then some weaker, longer folds kind of going downwards towards the knee. And I think really quickly this way you can get some decent looking folds that are going to work in the majority of situations. Folds at the knees or the elbows, folds around the armpits, and folds around the crotch area. But yeah, there you have it. This way you should be able to have an answer to a lot of the different situations you would encounter when drawing folds. Obviously, those are super stylized, super simplified ways of drawing the folds. But if you pair this along with, using references all the time as usual, like you should as a good artist, this should help quite a bit. Unless you already knew all of that, of course. In which case, why are you wasting your time watching this? All right, just like that, this is going to wrap it up for this week's video. Did it help your fold game? Let me know down below. And as usual, if you have any ideas, any requests for future videos, leave those down below as well. That's where I grab most of the inspiration when working on these weekly tutorials. If you want the brush that I use here in this tutorial, well, lucky you can get it for free as long as you're subscribed and you made sure to smash the like button on the video. It's by far the best brush in the world, and you can find it and download it for free in the top right corner of the screen here. or down in the description below. And by the way, quick note that has nothing to do with any of this, but the new version of Clip Studio Paint allows to import Photoshop brushes now. And so if you've ever wanted my brushes but you couldn't because you were using the wrong software, well, now lucky you, if you're using Clip Studio Paint, you should be able to grab them and use them as they are intended. Haven't tested it myself, but let me know. Do they work well? All right, see you later.